Again. All right, so thank you all for being here and joining us. My name is Matt Bezick, Executive Director of Oregon Trio Association, and somebody who had the amazing opportunity to go abroad last summer with CIEE and a bunch of our Oregon Trio students. So what we are here to do today is talk about specifically kind of the program leader side, like you as trio professionals, as adults who are maybe interested in traveling abroad and not having to pay for any of it, and doing what you all do really well, which is work with students and high school students and facilitate field trips. Like, you all are incredible experts. You do this on a monthly basis. So I think a lot of you would be very good candidates, particularly if you are bilingual or have some language capacities. You would be incredible candidates to be program leaders. And I'm sure they'll speak to this in a moment. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, but they are constantly in need of program leaders. You would think a free international trip would be something that they'd have to be very picky about, but it can be hard to find adults to go on these opportunities with students abroad. So there's a lot of opportunities here if you're somebody who has that flexibility in the summer. So before I kind of talk and start about my own experience and then pass it off to our wonderful CIEE folks, we got 4 of them here with us today. So if you all just kind of want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself and maybe mention kind of which parts of this process you all work in. Maybe I should do Emily. How about you go first? You unmute.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily, and my role here at CIEE is to actually help to hire and work with the program leaders. So I, met with Matt last year, and we were super happy to have him come on board and go with us. So I, work with my colleague Alex, who's on the call here, to go through applications. We help to screen them. We help to connect them with the center staff. I work with the center staff abroad, and then we continue to work with the program leaders throughout, starting, from when you're hired until you actually depart, with training and answering your questions and making sure that you have everything you need before you depart, as well as obviously being there to support you if for some reason anything came up while you were on program, and then hopefully connecting with you again so that people will come back.
Thank you. Alex, you may want to introduce yourself here.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. Like Emily said, we work with the program leaders. So I'm the program leader network coordinator. I'm only in like my 2nd week. I have been, though, with CIEE since January. I was formerly an enrollment coordinator, so formerly working more so with parents and students and things like that. But now I'm on Emily's team working with all the program leaders. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Joanna, do you maybe want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Joanna Blank. I've been with CIEE for 10 years, and I work with teachers, school administrators, and partner organizations in the western half of the US to recruit students for study abroad.
Right. And Ian.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. My name is Ian Hippensteel. I'm the Global Education Advisor with CIEE. So I work with Joanna in terms of interfacing directly with teachers, counselors, school administration officials to liaise directly with schools, present to students, and drum up interest in our programs on the student side of things. I also work with a team of enrollment coordinators, which Alex mentioned as her previous role. So these are the folks who work directly with students and their families once they've decided to apply to our programs. I'm based in the Central Valley, California, a little bit inland from the Bay, and I work with schools and students from Northern California up to Oregon and Washington State as well.
Thank you all. So what we're going to do, I'm going to give kind of my feedback and experience, both going on it and going through the process in terms of the program leader. And I'm going to pass it on to like Emily and Alex to kind of talk specifically, maybe answer more directly from them, kind of what that process looks like. And then I also want to give some time to Joanna and Ian just to talk about how, if this is exciting to you, or particularly for your students, like obviously the Oregon Trio Association, if you are unaware, we have a portion of that state grant funding we have that supports students being able to go abroad. So last summer, we were able to help support 11 students in that process, going to Cape Town, South Africa. Next summer, we're going to be looking to split them into 2 cohorts. So we do have funding for students to go to abroad, directly supported through us, but students can also just apply to go anywhere they want on any of these programs. Like, they do not need to go to the ones we selected. They can still win scholarships to cover tuition to go in a million amazing places across the globe. In those instances, the flights wouldn't necessarily be covered, but hopefully with enough time and fundraising, those students can still maybe create opportunities to go to Japan or Australia or back to Cape Town, or, you know, really a plethora of programs. So to start off, for those, I'm assuming a lot of you are here because you yourself have interest as a professional in chaperoning one of these trips. The easiest way to describe what the experience was like actually going on it was when I first started working in Upper Bound and Talent Search. At the time, we weren't as involved in like planning the day-to-day what we were doing when we did like these field trips with high school students or college campus visits. So a lot of time it was our staff who actually put together the agenda. That's basically what every single day of your life is like on these program things. You don't have to do any of the planning. They kind of have 21 days planned out for you. Every day you get up, you look at an agenda and you just kind of follow it. You're the direct liaison with the students, right? So they're, no matter where you are in the globe on any of these trips, they have site or staff on site who kind of work to develop the program, provide a lot of the kind of like leadership workshops or professional workshops. If you pick a language course, there are a bunch of these programs that are trying to promote learning languages. In those instances, the program leaders are often helping to teach those courses. In my experience, though, we picked one of the theme ones. So my job was just to be everywhere with the students. So you just got to be a part of everything. If they were doing cool excursions, climbing up a mountain, doing a hike, going surfing, going on a safari, you were just right there with them. If they were in class, you just kind of sat in the back of the class and helped make sure they weren't screwing around too much. But the job is just to kind of make sure the students are getting checked in with and have somebody that's looking out for them. And if somebody's having a hard time, help facilitate that. If there's disagreements between students, help facilitate that. But I found it to be just the best experience. It felt like I was on vacation for 3 weeks, with the caveat that like you're just around a bunch of high school students for most of that time as well. So if you like their energy, you like being around high school students, you still get to do a lot of amazing opportunities and things that they are doing as part of the program. They do schedule in a couple days off, so you're not on that entire time. So that can be helpful. And depending on what kind of program you're at, will also determine the amount of work you have to do. So in South Africa, we had 16 students, and there were like myself and one other program leader. If you go to a place like Paris, there could be like 70 students, but you could be looking at a lot more program leaders, and the kind of role would shift a little more. It may not be quite as personable, but still facilitates a lot of the same kind of roles. In my case, we all stayed in like one single hostel, but in some of these locations, they have like host families. So it kind of depends on what location you're looking at, what exactly the program looks like. But I found it to just be an amazing experience. The staff on site were super supportive. We even had a student that ended up having to like go to the hospital and ended up missing our flights out of the country. And our job is just like stay with the group, and that staff took care of that student for multiple days, got them flown back home. Like everything ended up being totally fine. They are just incredibly supportive. They're knowledgeable about those communities. They tend to be people who live in those home countries or grew up there. Also, it really ties you to those local cultures. So I could not speak more highly about the experience itself of doing it. And then as far as the application process, so I know that there is an online application that was in the calendar invite. Hopefully, I don't think that link is going to work. Hold on. Anyway, maybe the CIEE folks, if you could put the link to the actual application for the Global Navigator thing in the chat. I found the application process to be pretty straightforward. There's just a few questions you answer about your experiences traveling abroad or within the specific like theme or language that you've chosen. If you get through the initial stage, the kind of second one I found is there's like interview questions, but it's not in front of like Emily yet. There's kind of just these video questions they ask you. You do like a 1-minute response. It's just kind of a screening process. And then after that, I went to the actual formal interview stage with Emily and some other folks. So I found that to be pretty straightforward. It takes a little time between each stage, so it's not super fast, but I want to say it was around like January, February range, if I'm not mistaken, that I kind of find out maybe into March. So you usually have several months notice before you have to go. And you do have choices in terms of where you want to go and which cohort. So if you look at the programs online, they usually have a session 1 and session 2. One is mostly in June, the other one is mostly in July. So you kind of have options there. But that was kind of, I don't know, that just right off the bat, just me speaking off the cuff, that was kind of my experience, and at least what the process looked like. Once I was selected to be a program leader, there is kind of like this Canvas course training you have to do. There's a series of like webinars that they do to kind of make sure you're prepared, and they go over policies and procedures and help work through some kind of case studies, some situations you may run into with some other program leaders. They give you opportunities to meet the other individuals, adults who are going to be on site with you during your like session. So there's plenty of kind of virtual spaces in which they connect you with both the other program leaders as well as the students. There's like a facilitated session where you can kind of get to know them a little bit and visit with the people who are going to be on site in your host country with you to kind of make sure you're prepared and know what to pack and kind of know what to expect and all of that stuff. So yeah, even in the lead up, like there was plenty of support. There wasn't, I would say the only other piece I probably haven't touched on, one of your main roles is also like to run a blog. You just have to like be posting and kind of reporting so that families of all the students can kind of track what's going on. They try to not have too much direct communication between student and families and let them fully experience the opportunity. So you kind of serve as a liaison, just doing blog posts and taking photos and posting those so folks can keep track of what you and your group is doing. But that can all be kind of split up between the different program leaders as far as posting content. So I'm going to stop there and can pass it off to Emily and let you kind of fill in any gaps that I may have left in that process, or correct anything, any terrible mistake I may have made in explaining the process.
I feel like you should go and present to everybody from now on. That was an excellent overview, and amazing to hear that your experience was so great. Yeah, I mean, he summed up a lot of it, and the main role of the program leader, that how we like to describe it is, you're a chaperone, you're there to be a mentor, you're there to be a facilitator, and to be these students' first point of contact. But we really also kind of describe it as the program leader is like the bridge between the student's life at home and what it is that they're going to be learning on program, which is why we really like to have US-based program leaders, because they can both understand, the experience of being an American student going abroad. They understand both cultures. Well, it's not a requirement for you to have obviously ever been to the country that you're going to, because I don't believe Matt had certainly never been to South Africa before. But that's not a requirement. But to help understand their perspective and help them in cases when they might be feeling homesick, having some conflict, and making sure that they're staying engaged. So our program leaders, while the majority of them certainly are educators, particularly for the language and culture programs, who tend to be high school language teachers, because for the language and culture programs, I can speak to that a little bit more because obviously Matt did not go on one of those. Those are truly, they're a 4-week session where the goal is to truly improve the students' language abilities by immersing them in the city and the culture and the language. So the program leader's goal is to help them stay within the target language as much as possible, but be there to, help them through it, troubleshoot it. There could be students who have only completed 1 year of high school Spanish. There could be rising seniors who are, heading into AP Spanish. So there could be all, different levels for that. So for the language ones, having at least, fluency in the language is required. Not necessarily required to have, lived in, studied abroad in that country or anything, but obviously it always helps if you're familiar. But other than that, I mean, the program leaders, they can be teachers or they're administrators. We've had coaches, sports coaches have a lot of experience working with and helping students, even like camp counselors, expats. So it's a variety of people who you will also get to network with and meet as colleagues. I think that's an engaging and important part of the role as well. Even just a little bit more on the program. It starts in the US. You help to flight chaperone them on the way over and back. Matt was in a, was able to be chaperoning pretty much his own students going over and back. But sometimes we'll have program leaders meet a group of students in like a main gateway in the US, like say going to Europe, we might have them all converge in, JFK so that they can be on one chaperoned flight for the international leg. So, hopefully joining students on group flights, and then while on program, helping to just keep positive group dynamics, discussions, supporting them, 24/7 if needed. Obviously, you should be able to sleep, and everybody else should be sleeping too. But like you said, maybe having a student having to go to the hospital or something, things can happen. But the center staff is there to collaborate with you, so being able to work as a good team member with them as well is very important. Writing the blog posts, again, is also part of it. As Matt mentioned, it was a smaller group in South Africa. Some programs can be much larger. With that said, we try to maintain a no more than a 12-to-1 ratio of students to program leaders. So even if it is all of a sudden a much larger program, that means we will send many more program leaders too. So there will be, it should hopefully be about the same ratio no matter where you go. Could it be give or take on that? Like, is it, if it's, we're not going to send just one program leader with 16 students, so hence why there ended up being 2 program leaders to a smaller group. So give or take around, 10-to-1 or 12-to-1. So you'll, hopefully have some, teammates, colleagues to lean on. Somebody's having a day and somebody needs to step in, like you're there to be able to help support each other. So, working together, which, teachers are great at doing because you're so used to it. But sometimes it's just kind of, as Matt said, it was an amazing experience for him and he felt like he was just getting to learn right along with the students. That's what our program leaders come back and say, that the highlights for them are seeing the students grow, getting to experience, the culture themselves. Some of the programs, the program leaders also get to be in a homestay, and getting to have their own host experience could be a really great opportunity for growth for program leaders as well. So I'm happy to, help answer any specific questions anybody might have. I would say maybe just, one other thing that there was a pretty good overview of like the application process where, we are already taking applications, and I hope to speed up the process even a little bit more than what Matt went through last year. But, we run trainings in the spring, and it is also, we do offer a stipend. So we would pay $400 per week as your first year joining us. All of your flight expenses are covered, room and board are covered the whole time. So yes, we cover basically everything while you're there, as well as giving you a stipend on top of that. So I'd be happy to help, if we want to do some questions now, or even, let Joanna and Ian maybe, chat a little bit more about even just like the student side of it first, and then we can help answer all questions at the end would probably work best.
Yeah. Do you maybe want to quickly highlight, like, how many program leaders do you all usually hire in the summer?
So last year, I believe I had a total, like a little over 180 program leaders covering all of the programs. Many of those most of them are coming from the US. Some of them were expats living abroad. And then some were actually, some of them did end up being locals that live in, the program city and are familiar with it, but also have experience working with high school students. So there might be a mixture of people that can help bring their perspectives to it. But it's a lot, and we'll likely need even more this year because we hope to have, we are constantly trying to have more students travel.
And from what I heard, that not that it isn't a competitive process, you want to find good people, but there's constantly a need for more of these, right? There's often more students than chaperones.
Yes, I mean, with the number of students that we'll be having to travel, we will need a lot of them. And like you said, you would think that people would just be, jumping at the chance for this, but it's also a lot to ask people to leave for 3 to 4 weeks at a time in the summer, and not everyone has that flexibility. So we love to find the people who do. Some people go and do both sessions. We have some people that go for 6 to 8 weeks during the summer. So while it's, we do highly vet the people who go on it, because we do want to make sure that it's the right people that will be able to, they understand, they have the right expectations. They understand that, well, it is an amazing opportunity to travel for free. It is also, being with high school students all day, every day for 3 to 4 weeks. And just to also make sure that they'll have the right experience to be able to, contribute to the program as well. So we do get a lot of applicants. We'll want to make sure that they're the right people to do the job, though.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Joanna and Ian, do you want to? Well, Linda, I'm gonna just do questions at the end, so that way these folks can just touch on kind of the student side and maybe work we can be doing if we're all really on board with this and want to see a lot of our students have these opportunities. Just give them a chance to talk about that side and kind of what they can all offer to help support students applying.
Yeah, sure. And have you had a separate meeting with TRIO advisors on how to find the right TRIO students?
That's a good quote. Well, me and Ian scheduled. I haven't posted all yet because I've been sending too many things to all these folks. But on November 14th, there's going to be another call like this that's designated more for assisting students and having students join us.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So overall for CIEE, we are very happy to have made this connection with Matt last year, and it worked out really well. And it's wonderful when we have partner organizations like Oregon TRIO who provide additional financial support. We love to see that. But CIEE, as kind of US wide, we have over $5.4 million in scholarships that we award every year. So if you're in schools where you have, TRIO students who you think would be great for the TRIO sponsorship and that support, that is wonderful. But we can also work with any students at your high school. So if you have, world language teachers, guidance counselors who think this would be a good opportunity, we're always, and Ian is your school contact person, we are always excited to work with any schools to help bring these programs and the $5 million in scholarships to your larger school population. And some of the kind of ways we typically do that in schools is through either virtual or in-person presentations. Having conversations with the world language teachers is often the folks who are most interested in these opportunities, because it's really good for world language retention of students wanting to continue studying the language. So if you have contacts at your school who would like to learn more and would like help with bringing study abroad programs to the larger population, know that we have scholarship money available to everyone, and Ian and I are here to support your schools and bringing these opportunities to the greater populations.
And just some context as far as the scholarships, most of that funding is pegged more for the language ones and less for the theme ones, so you're more likely to get a scholarship if you do the language. It can be freshman through a graduated senior, but know that if you're a graduated senior, the most you can get is 10% of the tuition cost. They're trying to identify younger students. They request you submit some financial information just so they can check your financial status, and that determines how much you're getting. It's not a matter of like scores. Either you did well enough in your essays to get a scholarship or not. And the amount of your scholarship is just dependent on what your financial need is. But the scholarships can be as much as the full tuition cost. There is a $50 application, or $25 application fee. So the students that are applying for like our OTA sponsor one, they can leave that out, and OTA will like pick that up on the back end. So that's kind of part of our process. But anyone applying to the other programs, that would be the only upfront cost, is that $25 application fee. But the tuition, if they would one of the scholarships, it would cover all the rest of that tuition.
Yeah, and we have a whole team who works directly with students and parents through that process, and then Ian works directly with schools in Oregon.
And in that call we're going to be doing in November, talking specifically about the student application process, I'm going to have some student alumni who came with us last year, as well as some of the TRIO advisors who helped them through those processes, both in the application and afterwards, and all the paperwork that comes with that, to kind of answer questions and give some context for what that process looks like. So is there anything else you feel like touching on, Joanna and Ian, before we go to questions?
I don't think I have anything in particular. I'm also happy to answer questions, but yeah, this was like the biggest year we ever had with Oregon State students traveling. So we're hoping having the alumni, you know, back in the schools, that's always really helpful for spreading awareness and getting other students excited to travel, is seeing their peers come back from the summer and have had a good experience. So if you're out of school with alumni, try and find ways to celebrate those alumni and make them feel special, and you know, it's very unique that they had this opportunity and worth celebrating.
And of course, I made a video of them all, so you can also
Yes,
show that in the classrooms, right? The CIEE people were very impressed with my stock footage and editing skills. So okay, I'll go.
It's a great video. Okay. It's a great video.
Linda, you had a question right at the gate. Go ahead.
I do, and I just want to thank all of you for being here and sharing with us about this great opportunity. And Matt was just raving about it when he got back. So my question really is, I see a lot of my colleagues here. Not all of us work with high school students. Some of us are at the community college. I'm at Portland State, which is a 4-year university. For those of us who don't work with high school students, are we folks that you still might be would consider to be a leader?
I would say like potentially yes. I mean, if you have, you know, if you've had experience working with, you know, a student population of, you know, like freshmen in college are not that much different than a senior. Obviously, high school students are kind of their own breed, but I would say if you've at least, you know, had experience with education, probably been exposed to, you know, a level close to that. I've also had like, you know, 8th, 7th or 8th grade, like middle school teachers that I think have come on to do it because it's close. It's not quite the same. But then if you also happen to have a lot of the other characteristics, you know, that, you know, like Matt embodies with flexibility, go with the flow, like the passion for the subject matter, the experience that the students are going to have and be, you know, capable of doing the other parts of it. I would not say that I would not look at you and be like, nope, not definitely, like, you're not a high school teacher, you can't go. Like I said, I've also, you know, sports coaches, camp counselors, you know, like they have a great, you know, a lot of experience with helping to like navigate student emotions and conflicts and things like that. So it's not a disqualifier if you embody a lot of the other, you know, aspects that we look for, because there's a lot of boxes to check off of what makes the perfect program leader, and I'm not expecting everybody to have every single thing. You know, we're looking for people who are passionate about it and, you know, excited to help share this opportunity with the students.
And in South Africa, the previous session was like a classroom teacher. And based on the feedback I got from like Shalom, who was our program leader, she was like, she's great, but it's control based. It's a lot of yelling and loudness. And then when I went with like another high school counselor, and it was so mellow. It's very like trauma informed. And she was like, the energy is so much nicer and like, it's not as aggressive. So like, just lean into what your strengths are as like TRIO advisors. And I think, yeah, there's a need for what we bring to the table based on what I've heard some of the experiences are. Any other questions? You can put them in the chat as well.
I have questions. So one thing I was wondering about was housing and kind of what the options are for program leaders. I heard you mention maybe staying with a host family. And then my other question was around if you are able to apply for multiple trips or indicate like a first choice, second choice kind of situation.
Yes, that is a great question. So the housing can vary depending on what program you end up going to. When you've applied and we would be potentially sending you an offer letter, we would put in that what your housing should be, with the caveat that travel travel happens, things can change, it's possible that it could be different. However, language and culture programs, for the most part, you'll usually mimic what the students are going to be staying in. So like Matt could certainly speak to what his housing was like, where the thematic programs tend to be more of like everyone staying in the same place. The program leaders are also going to be staying in that same sort of either like, whether it's a hotel, student dorm, something like that. Like in Monteverde, for example, we actually have kind of like a campus that CIEE owns. The language and culture programs, for the most part, like I went to Madrid to help out with the program for a little bit this summer. The students are in homestays. The program leaders were also in homestays. So it, language and culture, would lean towards homestays. I think there were a few where maybe the program leaders occasionally would share like a shared apartment within which you would have your own private room though. So like no matter where it is you're staying, you're not going to be in like a twin room with somebody else that you've just met. Like you should have your own space to go back to in the evening and have a moment.
And Morocco is one of the trio locations for this summer.
Oh yeah, you could
yes.
speak
so
to.
I was in Morocco this summer, and it was a combination. There were some program leaders who really wanted to be in a homestay, and that was really cool for them, and so they did that. And then there were two program leaders who were in like a shared apartment. They each had their own bedroom and shared a bathroom and kitchen within walking distance to the study center, and that was just their preference. And Morocco's a location where they're happy to accommodate either. So CIEE, paid the rent and found the apartment, and it was all covered by CIEE.
Yeah. And then the second half of your question in terms of can you apply to multiple programs? The answer is yes. So the website that Alex put into the chat there, when you go to it, first of all, it has a bunch more information where you can read a little, even more nitty gritty into terms of, general expectations and requirements. There's even a great little video of some past program leaders kind of chatting about it. Gives you all the feels. But then on the application that you open through that website, within the application, we'll ask for, sort of general qualifications, experience with, students, contact information. And then in the program interest section, we'll ask like, are you interested in arts? Are you interested in the business programs? And then you can then select each one that you're interested in. So you can put multiples, and then under each like category, if you've said that like, yes, I'm interested in the arts programs, there'll then be a little free text box to kind of give the context behind why you think, you could be a good fit for that one. And then at the very end, we did add a question to actually say like, if you selected multiple programs, what are your top 3 choices? So that we at least get a sense of, if you picked a bunch of them, we have an idea of like, in an ideal world, it would be one of these 3, but you did say you were open to all of these ones. So, well, Alex and I would ideally put everybody in their top choice, as it gets down to, later on, and we'll be filling in sort of the last open spots, then it might start to get a little bit more, seeing who's open to it in the end. But yes, we do ask for hopeful preferences and allowing you to, offer up your insight as to why you could be a good fit for multiple programs.
And I think it's worth recognizing too, like a lot of the students we work with are hoping to get scholarships. So we, a lot of our Orange Trail students, they were more on the low income range, but there are many of these students who just come from wealthier families who just pay the whole tuition and the whole flight cost, right? It's not a problem. It's just an awesome summer experience for their students. So they want your experiences to be fun for those kind of students as well. So like where we were in Johannesburg, like, yeah, it was like a giant suite with a balcony that overlooked like these amazing South African sunsets going over Johannesburg. And like we stayed on the ocean in Cape Town in like a vacation destination surf town. Like there are these beautiful, amazing accommodations because they want it to be like fun. They're not going to have you in just cheap dorms and hostels. Sometimes in our trio world, we do everything kind of on the budget. And it's not always necessarily the most glamorous version of it, but I found this to be much more on that spectrum because they want it to be just a great experience, not only educationally, but also just in terms of as even a tourist and experience in these areas and cultures. So I I often felt almost over accommodated as a program leader from what my initial expectations were. So can you all, I know it's a slightly off topic, but if 10 students go from a single high school, is it go or apply? What is this process? All right, Joanna's nodding. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if 10 students from a given any high school that has 10 students travel, then one teacher from that school will get to travel just in like a purely observation role. So they'll go for usually like a Monday through Friday, observe the program, have nice meals, do the activities, but you're not responsible. So if you're working at a high school, I think other teachers might be motivated to get students to travel with a free observation trip. That's a good opportunity as well. And all of the alumni from last year, so if you're in a high school and you have an alumni who traveled with us last year, those alumni now have a referral code to share with prospective new students. So the alumni can share a $200 discount code with new applicants, so that in addition to their scholarship, they could also get that $200 discount by being referred from an alumni, and that will work with you to get all of your new students this year set up with that referral as well from yourself or from your alumni.
Yeah, so the website doesn't look pretty yet. Like, this is still the old format. It doesn't look like the pretty new website format, but everything up there is up to date and accurate. The link students click on the how to apply, the 3-step process. The top link says complete the Global Navigator Scholarship application through CIEE. That link is already including that $200 off code that I kind of had access from.
Great.
So as long as students are getting to CIEE through that link, it should already have that included. So
perfect. Nicely done.
Any final questions related specifically to being a program leader or kind of what that experience or application process is like?
Can you just remind us when the application closes, please?
For program leaders?
Yeah.
They don't really necessarily have a closing until I've filled them all.
Oh, all right. So it's open now, and
it is open now.
Okay, great.
But is the advantage maybe to applying earlier, having better
certainly is, because
for where you go?
Yes, because Alex and I are already penciling people in and starting to start the process that Matt went through last year even sooner, because we are both, we're ready to go. We would rather get a jump start on it than to, be playing catch up in January. So it's open now, which means that, if we're getting to you first, then it likely means we'll be able to accommodate more of those first choice programs.
Are there program leaders for the college level programs or not?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, the college level programs.
There's plenty of college level programs, but they kind of are there working with, that's where the site staff works more with them and helps them in their curriculum and on those processes. So they don't need as much of the chat. And those students have way more freedom, right? Even if you work with college students, they can look at opportunities to go abroad through CIEE, but they have much, much more freedom than the high school students do for obvious reasons, being a minor in a foreign country. I remember in the application process, there still is a request for COVID-19 vaccination cards, right? That's part of the application process to upload those.
Yes.
And then the only other, I know there is a place to also upload a resume and cover letter if you so desire, but most of it is just some pretty straightforward questions and small essay things. I'm just looking at what is all in the application.
Yeah, the program leader application is pretty straightforward. It's mostly, obviously collecting, your contact information so we know how to get a hold of you. We do have the COVID vaccination requirement still at this time. And then, yeah, just general information about your background and as to why you would be a good fit for the programs that you're selecting as your top choices. And then resume and cover letter, because that's all super helpful for us to obviously get a sense as to who everybody is, but to also we then share that with the center staff, because ultimately the center staff is the ones who you are then being hired to work with, and that's who you would be reporting to. So we like to be able to share that information. And then I would say, in the interview process, you could start with the one-way video interview, and then it would likely end up being, a face-to-face interview with maybe me, but also maybe the site staff themselves, because ultimately, they're a great resource to be able to actually ask more targeted questions, and also answer your more targeted questions about that specific site.
And one last note, there is a spot in the application to list a referral. Do not list me, right? Like, I don't want to create a conflict of interest for it, because you can get they will often pay prior people to refer new program leaders. I don't want that conflict of interest where I'm leveraging my position with OTA to profit personally. So do not think you need to include myself as a referral. It's mostly just to give small bonuses to those prior people. It doesn't necessarily strengthen your application for my interpretation. So I'm going to ask you all to not list that, so I don't create some conflict of interest issue for the board.
You can use your referral link to refer students.
Yes,
though, Matt.
yes, the student one I don't profit from. So please click that link on that link in the chat. That'll just save us money for the students that go with us, right? Because we're ultimately covering most of it. So it's $200 off per student.
Yes.
And if your student does another program, it just saves them money as well. So please do use that referral. All right, any final questions? Okay, well, I appreciate all you folks from CIEE being here, and hopefully a lot of you out there can complete this process and go all over the world, and we'll start this would just be great. We're often much like our students and I never had left the country really before doing this. So I'm hoping a lot of you have these opportunities moving forward.
Yeah, and that just goes to show that someone who had never left the country was still qualified to become, a program leader to lead international trips.
Thanks so much for doing this. It was helpful.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
All
for
right.
attending, everyone.
Take care, guys.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.